Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Bol. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Bol. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Bol. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Bol. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Bol. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Bol. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Om Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Hari Om to everybody. Today is 30th January. 30th January, we may forget the whole year. 30th January or October 2nd may touch and kindle something in us. Gandhiji. We don't know whether this was brought about immediately after the assassination. Papa writes, Mahatma Gandhi, the outstanding world figure of the day, has disappeared from our midst. We know that only the physical part of him has perished, but that his immortal spirit still abides with us and dwells and will dwell always in the hearts of his admirers and devotees of the present generation and also the coming generation for ages and ages. Essentially, Mahatma Gandhi was a saint of God man. He infused in the hearts of his followers all over the world faith in God, led them on the path of the divine love, righteousness, truth. His principle of non-violence is nothing but the principle of universal love based on the realization of the supreme unity of all life on this earth. His deep anxiety for the welfare of humanity, his compassion toward the sufferers, the poor, the downtrodden, his sustained concern in bringing about goodwill, amity and harmony among people who sought to ruthlessly destroy each other's life and property, as displayed in the communal riots, and his untiring effort for the removal of injustice done to the Harijans or the so-called untouchables, mark him out as a benefactor of humanity unparalleled in the history of the world for many centuries past. Mahatma Gandhi toiled indefatigably for the good of India in particular and the world at large in general. Every day it is becoming more and more evident, after the mortal part of him was consigned to the flames, that his imperishable spirit is working with a greater intensity for awakening the world to the consciousness of its inherent unity. While the wave of mourning passes over the world, his ever-glowing spirit seems to still to inspire and galvanize the hearts of people in different parts of the earth to the awareness of the supreme truth of God, or the one great master that determines the destinies of the human race. By striving to bring humanity nearer God when walking on the earth, he is yet, after leaving it, subtly working towards the formation of a universal brotherhood. His message of love and truth is producing a greater and more far-reaching effect on the minds of people now than when he was alive in the flesh. He has veritably aroused us all to the supreme need of the establishment of peace and goodwill on earth, and convinced us that strife, discord, and war must disappear from the face of it. Sayings of Mahatma Gandhi's spiritual eminence do not die. As a result of the supreme sacrifice which he made, may hatred and ill will be eradicated from the hearts of men all over the world. May mutual love and friendliness prevail, so that the entire humanity live together in harmony and in peace. The above tribute to his exalted and illumined soul cannot be complete without making mention of his predominantly devotional nature and unshakable faith in the name of God. By unbroken communion with the divine, through the practice of Ramna, he became a radiant devotee who dedicated his life for the service of God and humanity. Verily, there is no easier way of linking the soul with God and beholding him everywhere than constantly remembering him by the utterance of singing of his holy and all-powerful name. Many years ago, when we were going through some of the unpublished articles, we found there Papa writing that the first spiritual touch came to him after seeing Gandhiji at a distance. So that such was the power Gandhiji held on those days. Now, as Papa says, he is essentially a man of God. Some of his disciples are kind enough to compile essential spirituality from his various talks and books, and they brought it out under the caption, "Pathway to God." Where he, many of you might know that he did not undergo any traditional approach to spirituality. He was very much with the activities. He was leading a family life, professional life for some time, social life. But later on we find, especially after his brief stint as an educator or a parakeeper in South Africa, the change came when he was thrown out of the trade because of the then prevailing system in South Africa where whites and blacks are different. Blacks cannot occupy the same seat. So when he was thrown out from the train, the Mahatma in him started slowly coming. And it got fully blossomed. And after he wound up his interest in South Africa, there he started experimenting even in South Africa. Tolstoy farm, Phoenix farm, where we find only his teachings fully fully in spirituality, nothing else. And when he landed here, when Gokule approached him and take up the leadership of the freedom movement, we find it was not merely a freedom movement. It was an all-comprehensive, an effort for an all-comprehensive progression of the human life, not one part. So we hear, when we contemplate more and more on that aspect, we find his life has been only for thinking us in terms of God dimension, nothing else. Mulla, you can direct it there. Sorry, it will go itself. We just direct that, sir. We just came here to hear this, that's all. We will share now some of these words. So simple, uncomplicated. God is certainly one. Again it's coming. That was it. Melita. God is certainly one. He has no second. He is unfathomable, unknowable. He is unfathomable, unknowable, unknown to the vast majority of mankind. He is everywhere. He sees without eyes, hears without ears. He is formless, indivisible. He is uncreate, has no father, mother or child. Yet he allows himself to be worshipped as father, mother, wife and child. He allows himself even to be worshipped as stock and stone, although he is none of these things. He is the most elusive. He is the nearest to us, if we would but know the fact. But he is farthest from us when we do not want to realize his omnipresence. One paragraph, just imagine. God is certainly one. He has no second, unknowable and unknown to the vast majority of mankind. He is everywhere. He sees without eyes. What does it mean? Hears without ears. He sees without eyes. He is the power. He is the power. power behind the eye that hears. So he doesn't need an eye to see. A simple word and how profound. He sees without eyes, hears without ears. He is formless, indivisible. He is uncreate. Has no father, mother, or child. Yet, he allows himself to be worshipped as father, mother, wife, and child. He allows himself even to be worshipped as stock and stone, although he is none of these things. He is the most elusive. He is the nearest to us, if we would but know the fact. But he is farthest from us when we do not want to realize his omnipresence. I dispute the description that Hindus believe in many gods and are idolaters. They do say that there are many gods, but they also declare unmistakably that there is one God, the God of gods, Devadideva. It is not therefore proper to suggest that Hindus believe in many gods. They certainly believe in many worlds, just as there is a world inhabited by men, another by beasts, so also is there one inhabited by superior beings called God, whom we do not see, but nevertheless he is there. The whole mischief is created by the English rendering of the word Deva or Devada, for which we have not found a better term than God. But God is Ishvara, Devadideva, God of gods. Do you see it in the word God? Do you see it in the word God used to describe different divine being that has given rise to such confusion? I believe that I am a thorough Hindu, but I never believe in many gods. Not even in my childhood did I hold that belief that no one ever taught to me so. God is not some person outside ourselves or away from the universe. He pervades everything and is omniscient as well as omnipotent. He does not need any praise or petitions. Being immanent in all being, he hears everything, reads our innermost thoughts. He abides in our hearts. He is nearer to us than the nails on our fingers. He abides in our hearts and is nearer to us than the nails on our fingers. God is then not a person. He is the all-pervading, all-powerful Spirit. Anyone who hears him in his heart has accession of a marvelous force or energy, comparable in its results to physical forces like steam or electricity, but much more subtle. There is an indefinable, mysterious power that pervades everything. I feel it, though I do not see it. It is this unseen power which makes itself felt and yet defies all proof, because it is so unlike all that I perceive through my senses. It transcends the senses. You see, in all these, what a beautiful description he has given about the indescribable. In small, small words. This is not to be read like this. Those of us who are striving to get clarity on the word God, it will surely help us. I do dimly perceive that while everything around me is ever changing and ever dying, there is underlying all that change a living power that is changeless, that holds all together, that creates, dissolves, recreates. This informing power is, or spirit is, God. The truth is that God is the force. He is the essence of life. He is pure, undefiled consciousness. He is eternal. And yet, strangely enough, all are not able to derive either benefit from or shelter in the all-pervading living presence. Electricity is a powerful force. Not all can benefit from it. It can only be produced by following certain laws. It is a lifeless force. Man can utilize it if he can labor hard enough to acquire the knowledge of its laws. The living force which we call God can simply be followed if we know and follow his law. The living force which we call God can similarly be followed if we know and follow his law, leading to the discovery of him in us. God is an unseen power residing within us. There are many powers lying hidden within us, and we discover them by constant struggle. Even so, we may find that the supreme power, if we make diligent search with a fixed determination to find it. My God does not reside above. He has to be realized on earth. He is here within you, within me. He is omnipotent, omnipresent. You need not think of the world beyond. If we can do our duty here, the beyond will take care of itself. Is this power benevolent or malevolent? I see it purely as benevolent. For I can see that in the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists. In the midst of darkness, light persists. Hence I gather that God is life, truth, light. He is love. He is the supreme good. God is wholly good. There is no evil in him. God made man in his own image. Unfortunately for us, man has fashioned him in his own. Fashioned him, God, in his own. We have defined, we have localized, we have conditioned. This arrogation has landed mankind in a sea of troubles. God is the supreme alchemist. In his presence, all iron and dross turn into pure gold. Similarly, does all evil turn into good. Again, God lives, but not as we. His creatures live, but to die. But God is life. Therefore, goodness and all it connotes is not an attribute. Goodness is God. Goodness conceived as apart from him is a lifeless thing and exists while it is a being. So are all morals. If they are to live in us, they must be considered and cultivated in their relation to God. We try to become good because we want to reach and realize God. All the dry ethics of the world turn to dust because apart from God, they are lifeless. Coming from God, they carry life in them. They become part of us, ennoble us. So he is a mysterious power. He is life. He is nearer to us than the nails of something for us to think. He is unfathomable, unknowable, unknown to the vast majority of mankind. He is everywhere. He sees without eyes, hears without ears. He is formless, indivisible. He is beginningless, uncreated, beginningless. Yet, and has no father or mother or child. Yet he allows himself to be worshipped. He allows himself even to be worshipped as stock and store, although he is none of these things. He is the most elusive. He is the nearest to us, if we would but know the fact. God is not some person outside or away from the universe. He pervades everything and is omniscient as well as omnipotent. He does not need any praise or petitions. Being immanent in all being, he hears everything. He reads our innermost mind. He abides in our heart. He is nearer to us than the nails on our fingers. He is then not a person. He is the all-pervading, all-powerful Spirit. Anyone who hears him in his heart has accession of a marvelous force and energy comparable in its result to physical forces like steam or electricity, but much more certain.
When we say he is absolute power, it means that he is not relative.
He is not?
Relative.
Relative, yeah. Relative means nothing to compare, no? Absolute, he is absolute. Relative is the absolute, opposite of absolute. Incomparable. That is why all of us are struggling to understand. Because he does not come under the nobles. That which has been conceived by us so far about God or spirituality is not the truth. Approximating to his reality, we may be trying to understand. Because he is the very subject, the power because of which the words are now coming out, that power. The power because of which the eye see, that power. The power because of which we hear, that power. How can we bring it? Let's say he is a mysterious force. He is elusive. You cannot catch him and put him in a place. He is all-pervading. These words will be definitely helpful if we try to make use of it during our inward journey. And this will lead us to the universal vision. Because it is there in everybody, not only in one person who knows it. Later on, Gandhiji will say that he is available to everybody, even if he allows himself to be denied. That is why he is called Karunanidhi. He is called Dayalu, Kripalu. Each one we have to keep on thinking. The absolute cannot be brought within the ambit of our intellectual knowledge. We are trying to understand him through this, and that is the method we understood right from our childhood. Feelings. With feelings we can move nearer to him. Yesterday, Papa made us to talk about bhakti, that is that. Then wells of some sort of feeling. When we were reading Thy Glory, when we were reading Adorable Presence, what does it touch and kindle in us? Can we explain? But we know that. It cannot, because it is a feeling innate in us. In the midst of all activity, Gandhiji was finding time to go with him. Otherwise, how can he bring it out in such simple terms? For enabling us to understand to some extent. We have to do our own digging. Just like Papa places before us so many clues, Gandhiji places before us so many clues, hints, based upon his own experience. Later on, he studied Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Of all the Upanishads, Ishopanishad was his closest. Often he used to quote. Because the first word is that, no? Ishavashyamidam sarva. That is the pervading. He did not go through the usual Brahmavidya process. But when he plunged into it and bringing out dimension, he was experimenting it, and he was getting clarity over many of the subtlest things, facts, subtlest facets of spirituality. And he did not recede from anything. He did not even officially change over to a sannyasi. But he was the most detached person. And at the same time, not a dry Vedantin. That is why Papa had held him in such high position in the inquest of God. First book, you know, he had placed him on the pedestal of, they are the fullest expression of truth, he says. T capital. Mahatma Gandhi. Many years back, when we were going through some of the, we were clearing certain old books, we found Harijan, edited by Mahatma Gandhi in 1920s. Many of the copies were there. Papa was a regular reader. Even in the first chapter, you will find the books that inspired him included Young India and Ethical Freedom. Gandhi. Why, he was Gandhiji was directly linking spirituality with the common term of life. That's a simple thing. Somewhere he in Himalaya, he says, I am here to serve no one else but myself, to find my own realization through the service of these village folk. Now, this is very important. Man's ultimate aim is the realization of God. And all his activities, social, political, religious, have to be guided by the ultimate aim of the vision of God. The immediate service of human being becomes a necessary part of the endeavor simply because the only way to find God is to see Him in His creation and be one with it. The immediacy, I am here to serve no one. Man's ultimate aim is the realization of God. And all his activities, social, political, religious, have to be guided by the ultimate aim of the vision of God. The immediate service of human beings becomes a necessary part of the endeavor simply because the only way to find God is to see Him in His creation and be one with it. I am part and parcel of the whole. WHOAD. And I cannot find him apart from the rest of the humanity. My countrymen are my nearest neighbors. They have become so helpless, so resourceless, so inert that I must concentrate on serving them. If I could persuade myself that I should find him in the Himalayan cave, I would proceed there immediately, but I know that I cannot find him apart from humanity. I am striving for the kingdom of heaven, which is spiritual deliverance. For me, the road to salvation lies through incessant toil in the service of my country and my humanity. I want to identify myself with everything that lives. In the language of the Gita, I want to live at peace with both friend and foe. My patriotism is for me a stage on my journey to the land of eternal freedom and peace. Thus it will be seen that for me there is no politics devoid of religion. They subserve religion. Politics bereft of religion is a death trap because they kill the soul. A life of service must be one of humanity, one of humility. He who could sacrifice his life for others has hardly time to reserve for himself a place in the sun. Inertia must not be mistaken for humility. True humility means most strenuous and constant endeavor, entirely directed toward the service of humanity. God is continuously in action without resting for a single moment. If we should serve Him or become one with Him, our activity must be as unwearied, weariness, unwearied as His. Tireless. There may be momentary rest in store for the drop which is separated from the ocean, but not for the drop in the ocean, which knows no rest. The same is the case with ourselves. As soon as we become one with the ocean in the shape of God, there is no more rest for us, nor indeed do we need rest any longer. Our very sleep is action, for we sleep with the thought of God in our hearts. This restlessness constitutes the true rest. Yesterday, pining for Him. That is the real rest. This never-ceasing agitation holds the key to peace ineffable. This supreme state of total surrender is difficult to describe, but not beyond the bounds of human experience. It has been attained by many dedicated souls, may be attained by ourselves as well. It is easy enough to say, I will not believe in God, for God permits all things to be said of Him with impunity. He looks at our acts, and any breach of His law brings with it not its vindictive, but its purifying, compelling punishment.
Swamiji,
What
about an atheist?
What about?
Atheist.
Atheist. Who is inside? That is why he says he allows himself to be denied. That is also his. Actually, there is no atheist. They are only differing what we have conceived as God, that's all. Differing, they are not accepting what we have defined as God, that's all. Because they believe in themselves. When we have this clarity that He is the spirit behind it, then this label will not be there at all. He himself says, just because we deny, we will not be we deny him, he will not deny us anything to us. He himself says that. He allows us freedom, and yet his compassion commands obedience to his will. But if any one of us disdains to go to his will, he says, so be it. My sun will shine no less than for thee. My clouds will rain no less for thee. I need not force thee to accept my sway. Of such a God, let the ignorant dispute the existence. I am one of the millions of wise men who believe in him and are never tired of going to him and singing his glory. God is the hardest taskmaster I have known on earth. He tries you through and through. And when you find your faith is failing, or your body is failing you, and you are sinking, he comes to your assistance somehow or other and proves to you that you must not lose your faith, and that he is always at your beck and call, but on his terms. So I have found I cannot recall a single instance when, at the 11th hour, he has forsaken me. There is only one omnipotent and omnipresent God. He is named variously and we remember him by the name which is most familiar to us. Each person can choose the name that appeals most to him. God has 1,000 names, or rather he is nameless. We may worship or pray to him by whichever name that pleases us. All worship the same spirit. But as all foods do not agree with all names do not appeal to all. Each chooses the name according to his association, and he being the indweller, all-powerful, omniscient, knows our inmost feelings and responds to us according to our deserts. Man can only conceive God within the limitation of his own mind. What matters then whether one man worships God as a person, another as force? Both do right according to their lights. One need only remember that God is the force among all the forces. All other forces are material, but God is the vital force of spirit, which is all-pervading, all-embracing, and therefore beyond human ken. We may not be God, but we are of God. Even as a little drop of water is of the ocean. Imagine it torn away from the ocean and flung millions of miles away. It becomes helpless, torn from its surroundings, cannot feel the might and majesty of the ocean. But if someone could point out to that ocean that it is the ocean, its faith would revive. It would dance with joy, and the whole of the might and majesty of the ocean would be reflected in it. I don't think anybody can give clarity like it. We may not be God, but we are of God. Because we are not all-pervading enough. Omnipresence, Jiva. Even as a little drop of water is of the ocean. Imagine that it torn away from the ocean, flung millions of miles away. It becomes helpless, torn from its surroundings, cannot feel the might and majesty of the ocean. But if someone could point out to it that it is the ocean, its faith would revive. That is what Satsang does. Every time we feel we are an individual, carrying a big baggage, And we find there is no answer to many of our questions. We don't have any solutions to many of our problems, to many of our challenges. Then somebody comes, a spiritual preceptor comes, a good man, a wise man comes, and he says, faith in God will survive. God will do this, only a test. Our faith survives. It would revive. It would dance with joy, and the whole of the might and majesty of the ocean would be reflected in it. That is what Papa has been doing to all of us. Every time we forget that we are the finite, limited soul, individual. Through his various teaching, he touches, kindles, enthuses, awakens us. You are not what you assume yourself to be. You are God. He is there in you. In other words, he puts it like this. He is there in you. You have to, what did he say? There is no need for an intermediary. Switch on your wire for direct communication. Why do you deny him in your heart? Switch on your wire for direct communication. Why do you deny him in your heart? When he is there, why do you deny him? Man alone is made in the image of God. That some of us do not recognize the status of ours makes no difference, except that we do not get the benefit of the status. Even as a lion brought up in the company of sheep may not know his own status and therefore does not receive his benefits, but it belongs to him nevertheless. And the moment it realizes, he begins to exercise his dominion over the sheep. But no sheep masquerading as a lion can ever attain the lion state. And to prove the proposition that man is made in the image of God, it is surely unnecessary to show that all men admittedly exhibit that image in their person. It is enough to show that one man at least has done so. How practical. When we used to cook, with our firewood, nowadays it may not be necessary because we used to cook our gas. Every now and then, we put it in the vessel, water, rice, and boil it. Every now and then we will come and take, not the whole thing, one, and feed it like this, so that it just reaches the boiling point. Similarly, he says, not that God should advertise himself through every form, one. It is enough to show that one man at least has done so. And will it be denied that the great religious teachers of mankind have exhibited the image of God in their position? Our existence as embodied being is purely momentary. What are 100 years in eternity? What if we shatter the chains of egotism, melt it into the ocean of humanity, we share its divinity? To feel that we are something is to set up a barrier between God and ourselves. Simple, but how profound, just imagine. One day we can definitely, one day can be exclusively set apart for this particular sentence. That much profound it is. To feel that we are something is to set up a barrier between God and ourselves. To cease feeling that we are something is to become one with God. In this book, they have beautifully combined under different categories, so that just like, the speaks or hints to aspirant thus speaks in glimpses of the divine vision. Hints to aspect has also come, but it has not been categorized. Here, everything has been categorized. And Gandhiji's works means power. Wherever he has taught, somebody was kind of, unlike today, there was no recorder or somebody has to immediately pen down in shorthand and then type it out. 20s or before that, even before 20s. He himself has written, my experiment with the truth. So all those works, and he has addressed many in different parts of India. All those things have been put on record, luckily. Now given trust in, they have the whole gallery full of his. From there, to go through and pick out these fundamental, vital aspects and to put it in a small book called Pathway to God is marvelous. When we first happened to go through this book, when we had been to Mumbai, we were taken to a bookshop, Gandhian books, where we happened to see this book. Somehow the title distracted us, just like the Inquest of God, here, Pathway to God. So we immediately got a few copies, all costless, not costless. And then when we came here and started reading in Satsang, many people wanted the copies, and then every time when we go to Mumbai, we used to buy 20, 30, 40 books. And then when we were going through it, one day, suddenly, the flash comes. Conduct a satta. What satta? Gandhian satta. And this was the base text for our 7 days. It was conducted not in ashram, very near to ashram, the Rotary School. Nearly 70 to 100 people were regularly attending. 7 days. Morning, 8 o'clock it starts. It comes to a close by 9 o'clock or 9:30 in the night. Can you imagine? Going through the different facets. In between we have some bhajans, Gandhiji. Then yes, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which was very close to him. But all is interpretation. We had great Gandhian presence throughout the session to lead us. It was a wonderful game. So such is the power of this small book. Pathway to God. We salute before that person who was prompted to collect. How many years you would have taken pains, we cannot imagine. Oh, the supreme ideal. Man's ultimate aim is realization of God. God is Satchit Anand, existence, knowledge, power and bliss. He is an omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, omniblissful, mysterious power. Our soul is a spark of divine fire, a drop in the divine ocean. The world is full of joy and misery. Joy with God, misery without Him. Full of joy and misery, joy with God, misery without Him. Man's duty is to realize God, serve humanity, and enjoy His eternal bliss. So on the 30th, he has put it in different heading, intellectual sadhana, Sorry, I don't find the contents code on the page. Deshpande. M.S. Deshpande. It was he who did the compiling. Three parts this book has: intellectual, moral, spiritual. The intellectual aspect consists in the clear conception regarding the nature of God, soul, and the world, their relation with one another, and the primary duty of man. Gandhiji soon realized the futility and impossibility of reasoning out the existence of God. God exists because we exist. Simple. God exists because we exist. Really, we are not. He alone is. If we will be, we must certainly sing His praise and do His will. This is the first criteria. He keeps on telling. Moral aspect of Gandhiji's sadhana concerns the fight with the inner force, namely vices and the acquisition of some cardinal virtues. In fact, our attempt at the cultivation of virtues would automatically bring about the elimination of the vices. That is the moral aspect. And the spiritual aspect of the sadhana practiced and preached by Gandhiji consisted of a living faith in God, heartfelt prayer, meditation on Ram Nam, self-surrender. Unshakable faith in Ram. Gandhiji highly extols living immovable faith. Intellect takes us along the battle of life to a certain extent, but at critical moment it fails us. Faith transcends reason. It is when the horizon is in darkness, the human reason is beaten down to the ground, that faith shines the brightest and comes to our rescue. Faith is not a delicate flower that withers under the slightest stormy weather. It moves mountains, jumps across the ocean. The faith is nothing but the wide-awake consciousness of God within. He who has achieved that faith wants nothing. Bodily diseased, he is spiritually healthy. Physically poor, he rolls in spiritual riches. Prayer is the next spiritual sadhana performed by Gandhiji. He himself was essentially a man of faith and prayer. He tells us prayer is really complete meditation and melting into the higher self God. He who hungers for the awakening of the divine in him must fall back on prayer. Real prayer, according to him, prefers heart without words to words without heart. It needs no speech. It must spring from the heart. Prayer is a call to humanity, a call to self-purification, to inward search and peace. I believe, he declares, that prayer is the very soul and essence of religion, and therefore it must be the very core of the life of man. Along with prayer, Gandhiji tried to enthrone Ram Nam in his heart, took God's name with every breath. At the same time, he developed the attitude of self-surrender to the Lord. I have no strength save what God has given me. I know that I can do nothing. God can do everything. My greatest weapon is mute prayer. God demands nothing less than complete self-surrender as the price for the only real freedom that is worth having. And when a man thus loses himself, he immediately finds himself in the service of all that lives. It becomes his delight and recreation. He is a new man, never weary of spending himself in the service of God's creation. Now let us try to understand Gandhiji's conception of God realization. He says, I hold that complete realization of God is impossible in this embodied life, nor is it necessary. A living, immovable faith is all that is required for reaching the full spiritual height attainable by human being. He has some limitation, no? The human being means the limitation is there. So attainable by the human being. What is required is a living, immovable faith. To him, God realization is a supersensual experience consisting in the feeling of his constant presence in the heart. However, he appears to have enjoyed other spiritual experiences as well. He says that divine music is incessantly going on within ourselves. But our loud senses drown the delicate music, which is unlikely and infinitely superior to anything we can hear. Along with this still small voice, Gandhiji speaks about the pillar of fire and the inner light. When the light corresponds with the prompting of the inner voice, then the spark has the flash of inspiration. Gandhiji appears to have received messages, heard actual words emerging from the inner voice. So that is how we remember him on 30th January. It is really a boost in our spiritual journey. Because here he is bringing out everything from his own experience. His heart is speaking to us. Directly from the oven, as we say, directly from his experience. And everything is couched in simple language, easily understandable to our mind and body, intellect. He has gone through many of the texts later. But nowhere we find he advocates anything. All that he says is how to bring out his own experience. To him, he has also mentioned truth is God. He will not say God is truth, because truth is no God. For truth he has given the name God. Truth means, that which stays forever, abiding, eternal. So, to all the hearers or viewers, we would strongly suggest that if there is any possibility for you to get a small book, it's a small book, probably about the big size, slightly bigger inside, that's all. Like our any small book, but beautifully categorized. Every now and then we just go through that, we get clarity. When we read Papa's books, along with that when we read on some page, some text, especially on Ramnam, there are many incidents. He believes in Namapati. Have you ever heard Gandhiji being admitted to a hospital during his 79 years of life? He was born in 1869, no? Yeah. 79, till he's 79. He dropped his body in 79. So that means we have never heard. Not that he is free from physical sickness, but he will experiment with nature cure and faith in God. Faith in God. Something unparalleled. That's what Papa says, unparalleled in the history. Easy to say about these things. But he says the body is made up of the 5 elements, and therefore anything that is to anything that you need to cure any of the disease of the body can also come from the five elements. That is the basic approach to nature cure. The body is made up of five elements. So when anything gets derailed in the product of these five elements, it can be got set right through the five elements. That is how the concept of nature cure came, and he set up the nature cure center in Pune. What is the place? Urlinganj. Vinobaji's younger brother was manning it. To see so many such things get connected. So Gandhiji's life, that is his message. He always says, my life is my message. Be the change. What is he saying that? So whenever we want any message, just go to his life and come out. He was reading like all of us. He was not divorcing himself, isolating himself from the rest of the society. He was very much with everybody throughout, during the sadhana period and after the attainment period, till the last moment. He was very much with everyone. More about him we will try to do later. So with a heart full of gratitude and reverence to this holy personality, we pray to him now. We seek in our hearts in the form of remembrance to guide us towards what all he stood for. Hari Om. Om Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram.